My name is Doug, and this is Leaving the Dream. On October 5th, 2021, Hawaii's very own Sam Kapoi was sentenced to 18 years behind bars in a federal prison. With only 4 days left as a free man, Sam sat down with me in an exclusive 4-hour interview that you can only find right here on Leaving the Dream. This is Sam's only interview, and he holds nothing back. So here's Sam's story in his own words.
Oh, from the ashes I will rise. No satisfaction without the fight. A man has limits, oh, so they say, but I'll never listen. Did it my way. I'm gonna take what's mine, I paid my dues. I dare you to walk a mile in these shoes. The beat in my soul just keeps getting louder. Give me some of that power.
You know
So
what I mean?
was HPD involved in the investigation?
Yeah, it was a cross multi-agency. Yeah, multi-agency.
Okay. So you get let out. This is in October.
Yeah.
Until then, you didn't know they were coming to get you when they picked you up.
Nope.
And then now you know this is serious. Now at this point, do you know your charges?
Yes. They after the processing, they had a bunch of these charges, right? Like, I don't know, 6 counts of different shit, like whatever it was, like the drugs, the gun, the statements that said what drugs did come in, kind of thing. And
were these federal charges or were these state charges?
all federal.
All federal. Yeah. So it was like meth trafficking.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens when you get out? What do you start doing? Like, where is your mind at? What do you start thinking? I got to start preparing. Do you get a public defender or did you hire an attorney? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So I didn't have anything at first. And my first thought literally was rent. I was like, okay, I got $0 in my account. Rent is due at the end of the month. It was like second week of February, I think this happened, right? And February 14th or 18th, I think it was, that weekend, me and my wife had an idea of how to just make ends meet, right? And it was a business that I created, Kalo Bombs, and I wanted to do a Kalo business since 2009. But the main issue with the Kalo business literally is the Kalo, like getting a sufficient amount of steady raw Kalo for your business. That's the hardest part of
so
any
you
Kalo
didn't.
business.
So Kalo Bombs happens after you're released.
Yep.
When did you launch Kalo Bombs?
Literally a week after.
And so were you thinking about that while you were in, or was this already in the works?
No, not at all. It was a thought from 2009. You know what I mean? Like just making Pa'iai and Poi. But then in 2000, I think it was 18, or 19, I was the head of the Alakai program, this youth leadership program for this organization called Nakamakai. And we had a sponsored trip to go to Brazil to go teach people in Brazil what we were doing as an ocean safety program to create a Brazil branch. With that, the kids the young leaders is heavy with running the program basically. So what I wanted them to do is have skin in the game and not just be some spoiled kids with a sponsored trip, right? So I told them, we'll raise some money. This money you guys can keep so that you can spend whatever, use it as spending money when we go on this trip. So I had them, I pitched them the idea of making Pa'iai, and it was like 200 pounds, and I told them this would be a decent amount, and a lot of work to get a decent amount of money so that you guys can split amongst the 20 of you guys evenly, and or however much they sell. That was like the cut, I guess. And so we did that. When my wife saw that, she was just kind of shocked and amazed, like how, yeah, it was hard work, but how lucrative it potentially could have been. And she mentioned to me, you know, one time, like, oh, we should do it. But my whole discrepancy about starting it was not having a sufficient amount of kalo every day, you know, because it's demanding. You know, when people hear that I make paia, it's like instantly gone, you know, like people wanna eat it. And so fast forward, you know, run into this incident, because at that time still I made calls, you know, I tried to find if there was kalo around, and you just couldn't find it. You know what I mean? It was hard.
Why? What's the problem? How come you cannot find it?
Well, kalo is a plant that takes, like, I would say at the low 8 months to the high 16 months to grow, right?
Dang.
And that's a long time growing crop, you know, to sit on, wait, and then you got to do it all over again, right, for one plant. And mind you, a standard size corm. So the kalo behind me on this, you know, screen, the corm is like a potato, a starch, right? And the average size, I would say, is like, 3 to 5 pounds on average. But, you know, of course, I've seen bigger ones like 10 to 20 pounds. That just depends how you feed them. And so, anyway, it's a long turning crop. And so it's not like, and it's not very profitable for the farmers nowadays, unless you're doing volume, of course, right? Which means you need a bunch of land and a bunch of water. And that is very hard to come by nowadays in Hawaii, right? So
where is it grown in Hawaii?
It's grown pretty much on every island, except Kaho'olawe, because there's no water there. But every island has kalo. And for me, like, my connection is because my 6th or 7th generation grandfather was very well known in Waianae for his lehua, his Waianae lehua kalo and poi. So people from all over the island would come specifically to Waianae for his kalo.
Wow.
So when I did that research and found out about that story, because he was the first, like, Hawaiian business owner. He had a saloon where the current state library is at right now in Waianae. And at his saloon, you know, fine wines, beers, spirits, all that stuff. But outside of his saloon, he had a big wine barrel filled with his kalo daily that people could grab from. So with that, knowing that story, I was just motivated from all those years ago when I did my family tattoo on my leg in 2005, and I was just inspired. Like, I wanted to do that, you know. But the biggest part was finding raw kalo all the time, like for years. And when I got heavily involved in 2009 with my cousin, that pretty much he taught me everything. You know, I attribute all my success to that guy, because without his time that he spent, the knowledge, all that stuff, and for him to teach me, taking the time to teach me all that stuff, like, I wouldn't have nothing, honestly. And so mahalo to cousin Daniel for all that mana'o and ike and stuff. But
shout out cousin Daniel.
Yeah, and so and he has a great nonprofit. Hopefully, you can put up the link for that.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Guy. He's super awesome, doing amazing things.
Link in description.
But from doing that research, I was like, yeah, I wanted to do this since 2009, and fast forward 2018, 19, I did it for the kids. My wife, you know, seen the whole operation. She's like, oh, we should try and do it. It was just hard, right, to find kalo. My stuff happens, get busted February 2020. Literally that week, because I'm like scrambling, like wondering what I'm gonna do, what is the fastest way, and stuff that I know I can do and people want was pa'iai. So I was reaching out to all these farmers, and I might have called my cousin Daniel, and I probably got like 50 pounds or 100 pounds from him, but then that's it. Like what next, right? So I made a call to like a local farm here, and lo and behold, they had like 2,000 pounds waiting. Like it was ridiculous. I never did hear of that amount ever in my life, waiting. So
why was it? What was? How is that possible? Like why?
For some reason, they the farm just grew that much this past year. Because around that time, I forgot to mention, was that all the farms in Hanalei in Kauai, the big storm happened and it wiped out a year worth of production. And because of the infrastructure, at least 2 to 3 years of production, right? And so they weren't growing anything. So we had to source kalo from whoever had it. So happened on Big Island, there was this farmer that had about 2,000 pounds, and I told him I'll take it all, you know. And then oddly enough, they had a consignment type of like a program thing, and so I didn't have to pay for anything until like 90 days. Then you pay the invoice.
Oh, like consignment. Consignment,
yeah. And I was tripping. I was like, wow, like I never heard of that. So cool, I ran with it.
And this is for the corn, like you would buy it?
It's just for the corn.
For the corn. And then for people who don't know, what's the difference? So pa'iai is the poi before it's diluted with water, yeah?
Correct. So pa'iai, after you cook the corn, clean it, pound it, it becomes pa'iai. When you add water, it turns into poi.
Okay.
So that's the different stages of it. So it's just a concentrated, the thicker version of pounded kalo. And so for the first, like, we was doing pop-ups like every weekend, every other day. And then eventually, February, March happened. Oh, February is when COVID started, right? February 2020. COVID just started. It was ramping up. And then HPD started to threaten people that were doing pop-ups and food trucks on the side of the road. Like, we're going to cite people that is standing outside.
Oh, because of the COVID stuff.
The lockdown thing, right? So they're like, we're going to arrest people, ticket them, blah, blah, blah. So I told my wife, like, let's stop doing that because that's a risk. One, because of the health. Two, because of, I don't want people getting arrested for pa'iai. Like, that's kind of crazy.
Sure.
And in March, we were doing it out the house, from the garage, and got busted with our association, and because you can't vend out of the house. Like, I didn't even know, but it's in the rules, right? So I'm like, whatever. So happened, my friend owns a bunch of commercial real estate out there, called him, and he had his office space that he was about to vacate because he was going to work at home, and he told me to have that space for my shop, my current shop right now. And it was a major blessing, you know what I mean? Like, it was like this major blessing and major curse on the other side, right? Because I know what potentially I'm facing, 10 years or less. Eventually it became 18 years, right? And now I got my dream business job, right? Like, dealing with kalo every day. And that was the dream.
Right, like it makes sense. Sam Kapoi sells Kalo Bombs. Like,
right.
That makes sense. You know what I mean? That's your brand.
That is.
It's always been your brand.
Always. Well, it was just like sporadic, right? Like,
yeah.
There was, like,
but it finally came together. I mean, this is Sam Kapoi. He's the Hawaiian advocate, and who better to bring kalo to the mainstream and people eating Kalo Bombs than Sam Kapoi. It makes sense, but this is after you have this case. Like, it finally comes together. Yep. But
that's what I mean with the blessing and the curse. It's like,
right, like
it hurts, bro. Like, it's just crazy.
Like, this feels like a calling, yeah.
Yep.
And then you find your calling after you get this case.
Yeah.
And so at this point, you don't have sentencing. So you're just hustling. You're trying to build Kalo Bombs. Like, that's what you're doing. Before then, were you just doing video? Like, up until then?
Yeah, I was doing video and then that tiny home business.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then, I mean, that lasted like a couple months, you know what I mean? Because of Trump's new rules or whatever. But the video was primary from like 2002.